This video is sponsored by Friedrich. It's a tough sell trying to justify upgrading to the new iPhone every year, and that's especially true with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. There are a few noteworthy additions to Apple's most premium smartphone, but by and large, this is the most iterative iPhone we've seen in quite some time. The good news is, if you're watching this video, you're probably going to be updating from a 2, 3, maybe even a 4 or 5-year-old device, and the 15 Pro Max offers a lot to love from that standpoint. And regardless of really which phone you're coming from, the 15 Pro Max will make for one of the best phones to have with you in your pocket and ready to go throughout all of your travels. And that's where our sponsor comes in. If you're an avid traveler and haven't invested in a quality suitcase, you're doing yourself a disservice. Friedrich sent out their hardshell suitcase for me to use on my recent trip to the United Kingdom. I rolled this suitcase around the streets of London, Edinburgh, Scotland, and Dublin, Ireland, all without a hitch, thanks to largely the silent Japanese spinner wheels. Those things glide across those rough cobblestone streets. I never had to check this back into the airport since it's just barely small enough to fit as a carry-on, even on those small microflights. There are 2 TSA-compliant luggage locks to keep your contents nice and secure in the terminals. And this hardshell pocket can fit a laptop, a tablet, and some magazines and provide easy access. There are a lot of good things I can say about this suitcase. I will say though, it is a bit on the pricey side at $565, but you do get a 100-day free trial, and you'll probably never have to get a new carry-on suitcase again thanks to the lifetime warranty. Links in the description if you want to pick one up for yourself and pair it with your iPhone 15 Pro Max. Okay, now back to the review. So you've probably seen some of the commercials by now, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but no, it's not the titanium that you're going to love about this iPhone. I mean, sure, it's durable, it's lightweight metal that makes for great marketing, but it's not going to make your life any better having a titanium smartphone. It shaves off about 20 grams off the weight compared to last year's iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is a subtle improvement, but the phone is still prone to cracking under pressure, as highlighted by Jerry Rig Everything's durability test. In fact, it's even less durable than last year's iPhone. I also noticed some discoloration with my brand new model, which makes you wonder if there's a thin coating around the titanium frame that's left over from the factory, because my model had some discoloration right out of the box, as you can see in this unboxing footage. Apple's aware of the issue and says you can use a soft and mildly damp cloth to remove the stain. Mine just went away on its own after some mild general usage, but it's a little odd and it doesn't offer the greatest experience when you first lay eyes on this phone. Also, if you're going to put this phone in a case, a lot of these criticisms don't matter. So no, it's not the titanium that makes this phone great. It's actually the addition of a USB-C port. That's right, this phone supports USB-C, so now you can charge pretty much all your devices with one connector. And it also supports USB 3 transfer speeds of up to 10 gigabits per second, although in typical Apple fashion, the included USB-C cable in the box doesn't allow for these transfer speeds. So yeah, you can kiss goodbye the lightning cables you have around your house, and you can move further into the future and use one cable to power probably all your devices. I still don't think this feature justifies upgrading from an older iPhone 14, but it almost is there for me. It almost does it. That is how much I love this move by Apple. The other big new feature that's also not exclusive to this device is the action button. This is what Apple should be highlighting in its ads because it's truly a useful feature, and Apple surprisingly didn't nerf its potential. If you're unfamiliar, well, Apple replaced the silent toggle switch on the left side of the iPhone in favor of this new customizable action button. And you're able to set a custom shortcut button to open up an app of your choice or perform a specific task like open up the camera app or turn on the flashlight. But Apple went even further and also added support for Siri shortcuts, so you can do some really unique custom like home automations. You can use it to play and pause music, start listening and identifying a song that's playing, and much more. The possibilities are really endless with the addition of Siri shortcuts. I do wish Apple added a double-click action so you can double-click and perform a task, but on day one, the action button is surprisingly useful and jailbroken. The other revolutionary new feature is the new telephoto camera that features a new tetraprism design with a combined optical image stabilization and autofocus 3D sensor shift module. There's a little bit of sarcasm in that, as you can probably tell. It does feature the longest optical zoom ever on an iPhone, 5x zoom at 120 millimeters. And so in layman's terms, you'll be able to capture sharper images of subjects further away. That's pretty cool. I went to the pumpkin patch and I put this camera to the test, and well, you can see it's actually quite capable of capturing faraway subjects and retaining lots of detail. and it fits the color science, the exposure, and sharpness of the other main lenses in this phone really well. It's just not a feature that most people, I think, are going to be able to make the most of, and certainly not a feature that is alone worth the upgrade costs from last year's iPhone. And I'd be shocked if we didn't see this feature make its way to the standard model of iPhones in next year's devices. Another new feature that pros will really enjoy and is unique to this iPhone is the ability to shoot log, which is a super flat color profile that gives you way more control over color correction for your videos. You can also apply the portrait mode effect after the fact, so if you forget to use portrait mode when taking a photo of your best bud, you can just apply the effect later and get that milky depth of field. Again, nothing crazy new, but certainly some very appreciated new features that help round out the feature set of this phone. So that's it. Those are some of the biggest new additions to this year's iPhone. Not too shabby, but also kind of underwhelming if I don't say so myself. The good news is, though, there are a lot of other things to love about this phone. The 6.7-inch OLED display returns, featuring slightly thinner bezels, and it does get slightly brighter, even though it's not listed as having a brighter display in the official specs. It's largely the same exact display as its predecessor, but that's not a complaint because it's a beautiful panel. The 120 Hz refresh rate makes content appear buttery smooth, but so does the brand new A17 Pro chip. It too is very, very similar to the A16 Bionic chip from last year's iPhones, but if you're coming from an older device, you are going to love the speed that this chip offers. In fact, talking to some friends that recently upgraded to the iPhone 15, the first thing they mentioned was just how much quicker it is than their old iPhone 8 that they upgraded from. Apple says battery life is about the same as last year's iPhone 14 Pro Max, which has been slightly disappointing, actually. The Max iPhones from years past would easily last me a full day of moderate to heavy usage, but these newer iPhones will barely get me through a full day, and usually I do have to top it off just to avoid the low battery anxiety I get when my phone is at around 30%. On day one, battery life is going to be great, but if it's anything like my iPhone 14 Pro Max, expect that battery life to drop off over the weeks and months to not great levels. And the latest iPhones are also the first Thread-enabled smartphones, which if you don't know what that means, then it probably is not going to matter to you too much, but essentially what it is, it's the smart home protocol of the future that will open up future opportunities for home app integrations. So as more manufacturers adopt and support the protocol, you should notice more control and connectivity for various smart home gadgets. You're not going to get too much out of it on day one, but in the future, you might appreciate having it. So to conclude my review, I'll say this. I'm incredibly happy to see USB-C iPhones. I've been waiting for this day for years. The ability to charge my laptop and my iPhone with the same charger is huge. But if this is the biggest feature over last year's iPhone, it's pretty tough to recommend upgrading just for this ability. And sure, titanium does reduce some of the weight of this phone, and the 5x telephoto lens is nice in certain situations like the pumpkin patch, but most people simply aren't going to be able to get the most out of this feature, especially enough out of it to justify the price of this phone. And that's the icing on the cake. The starting price of the iPhone 15 Pro Max is $1,200, which is $100 more expensive than last year's base model 14 Pro Max. And while you do get 256 gigabytes of internal storage as opposed to 128 gigs in the base model, storage cost Apple, pennies. So it should just, in my opinion, replace the 128 gigabyte storage option without a price increase. There's just no way to justify upgrading from last year's iPhone. It's that simple. But for those of you who have been waiting to upgrade phones for years, you will really benefit from what the 15 Pro Max has to offer. With the relatively long battery life, the refined display, and the fastest mobile processor on the market, I think you're going to be upgrading to a phone that is future-proof for years to come now, especially with the USB-C port and even the smart home Thread networking radio. You're going to be very, very happy with the purchase, and who knows, maybe the next phone you'll be upgrading to will be a first or second generation iPhone foldable, which apparently Apple's working on, so only time will tell. I'll place a link down below in the description to learn more about this device, maybe pick one up for yourself. And if you want to learn more about Carl Friedrich's carry-on suitcase, the one that we discussed earlier in this video, I'll place links down below for that as well, so make sure to check them out. As always, I'm BoHD from Slash.tv. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you right back here in the next one. See ya.